And goodness gracious, guys, that was never really in doubt. Who we kidding? That was always, we all thought the Bears would win the game. And lo and behold, we're geniuses this afternoon. I don't know how that happened.
Chicago Bears come up with a win again, Mully and Cat, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to
To
see
see
them
them
find a way to pull that off, right? Obviously, it wasn't clean. We're hoping for a clean win. We're hoping for a team that looked like they were playoff bound and playoff ready, but they keep finding ways to win. The young quarterback is out there with his legs, making plays, making guys miss in the pocket, spinning each way. I don't know which direction he's going. I don't know how many sacks he avoided tonight, but it was amazing to watch. Defense with a lot of early struggles when Jackson Dart was in the game. Then second half struggling to stop the run. But C.J. Gardner-Johnson comes up with the big play, right? Comes up with the fumble, causes the fumble, causes the takeaway. That we're +1, right? The ghost of Pat Manley shows up at Soldier Field, gets a takeaway. Find a way, Cat. Find a way to win the game. I thought a great call by Ben Johnson at the end to boot Caleb out, get him on the edge. Burns bites. Caleb scores. I can't believe we have the lead. And, Russell Wilson in there proving Sean Payton right, what he said about him earlier on, their big Twitter fight. But, man, Cat, I'll take the win. I'll take 6-3, and we'll go on to the next week.
Hey, there were points and times when I wasn't sure that they were going to get to 6-3. Parts of that game looked pretty ugly, and the way that New York was able to move the ball at times started in the second half with them finding little areas to get through in the run game and breaking off 4, 5, 6-yard runs that weren't there in the first half, because I thought the Bears did a good job in the first half as far as shutting down the run and forcing New York to either run with Dart or throw the ball. But in the second half, they started moving the ball. The Bears turn around. They get some big plays. They're able to get that big turnover. And like you said, man, 24-20, I'll take it, but my heart's still beating a little hard right now.
Right.
I gotta say that we know that Caleb can put on the Superman cape and he's so good at the end. I didn't expect him to win it with his legs. I mean, it was those two runs at the end of the game were among the best he's had this year.
They were, and the way he, like I said, Ben Johnson put him on the edge there. I think on purpose, right? Like that's a play call. You run the ball there, put him on the edge, get him out there with Cole Kmet. Of course, Greg Olsen loves to scream about a tight end blocking a 180-pound defensive back, but that's okay. Cole still did a nice block there, leading Caleb into the end zone. And like you're saying, Mully, just a few times in that pocket where it looks like, man, he's dead to rights. They're going to sack him here. And these aren't just anybody, Cat. This is Thibodeau, Burns. This is Dexter Lawrence. These are good football players. Abdul Carter, guys with speed, athletic guys. He's making them miss. He's shaking out of tackles, and then he's running for first downs, big gains, doing a nice job leading his team. And I think Ben Johnson put it best. And Ben Johnson said, I have to get used to it not being perfect when I call plays for Caleb Williams. That he's going to do things that are extraordinary and out of the ordinary. And I think we all do. We all have to get used to the way this young man moves the offense, gets them down the field. Now, you want to see them be more efficient, get going earlier in games. But again, the thing you have to do every week is win a football game. And they found a way to win 6 of their last 7.
Yeah, being able to pull this one off, like you said, with all the pressure that was put on him. And it wasn't like guys were coming through late. I mean, he was getting pressure right off the bat at times and hands on him. And he's able to spin out of him, pull away, make yardage, buy himself some time. We have all the conversations about him being a quarterback that holds the ball too long. Today, you see him hold the ball long because he's forced to and still be able to make those big plays. So, it all depends on the situation and it all depends on the guy. And right now, Caleb looks pretty good doing it.
I don't even know how to put that in any kind. I mean, it was a terrible win, if there is such a thing. And I know we never apologize for victories in the NFL, but don't we need a collective sorry about that from the head coach when we listen to him a little bit? That was about as frustrating a game as I've ever seen. And then they wound up winning it, which, the Bears were god-awful for long stretches in that game. Thank God the Giants are worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what we talked about going to this game, right? All their opponents were 15-37, and what are they if they don't win the takeaway battle, and what are they if they play a team with a winning record? And you're watching this game and you're thinking, man, with the 31st ranked rush defense in the NFL, you're playing against them. Why does Monangai only have 7 carries? Why does Swift only have 13 carries? What was the actual game plan? There were drops, right? Rome Odunze's drops, Zacchaeus drops. There were drops all over the place. But it was also, there were drops on when Caleb was doing the same thing, right? Spinning out, rolling out, running down the sideline and winging it to somebody. And it was just when you're watching this game, like you're saying, Mully, and then the defense couldn't stop Jackson Dart. And, he gets hurt, and I hope he's okay. But thankfully for us, right? Because when he was in, they were moving the ball, and he was completing a lot of passes. And you start to think, okay, maybe it wasn't just the fact that the Bengals have Higgins and Chase. Maybe our secondary is struggling to slow down passing offenses. And really, that offense doesn't slow down until Russell Wilson comes in the game. And to Big Cat's point, even when he came in the game, they went to outside zone and found a lot of yards there running at Austin Booker. We saw Chris Williams playing DN for the first time. They're trying to find bodies there, right? Shoyinka's over there and Montez Sweat. And that's their rotation right now at defensive end, which is going to be, in a word, scary going down the road here with these teams they're about to face.
And is there a bigger surprise than the impact that Gardner Johnson has made over the last 2 weeks? Mm-hmm. Being able to get in there, getting in on the sack, making big plays, and it just seems like he's all over the place on the field. So, hats off to him for having a big game and making some big plays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if he wasn't doing that, you just shudder to think how narrow that kind of a victory it was. And we talked about it in the pregame. You consider it pivotal, like one of these games that if they really have the ability to make the playoffs, they couldn't lose that game because all the NFC North games are staring them down. They got another game against the Lions who destroyed them. They got a game next week at Minnesota when they somehow gave the whole thing away in the fourth quarter of the first one. They haven't played the Packers yet. It is – there are just a lot of reasons for alarm, and yet they are living well. They are in the mix for the playoffs at 6-3, but I think we might be slightly deluding ourselves by thinking of them as a playoff team. They didn't look like a playoff team today. Again, it doesn't matter. They won. They made the plays when it mattered most, or at least the opponent could no longer make plays. If Jackson Dart had been in that whole game, if he hadn't gotten hurt, there's no way you would have won that game.
Right, you are what your record says you are, right? And I understand exactly what you're saying, Mully, because that was the worry going into this game, and that's why we talked about in the pregame show. Would love to see a good, clean, dominant game from the Chicago Bears against an undermanned Giants football team that it looked like on paper, also on film, we had the better roster and we had the better coaching staff. And that's why we want to see, okay, go out there, dominate this game, and then with these teams coming up with the winning records, right? Vikings, Steelers, Eagles, Packers, okay, those are tougher games than the teams that we have been facing, and we'll see how that all goes. But you still got to get here, Cat, at 6-3. You still got to get here with the wins that they had, and the TV copy did a nice job showing us how the Bears have blocked the field goal, kicked the game-winning field goal, throw like a Hail Mary to Colston Loveland, have him score a touchdown, and now today score late to win. But the good thing is we are in position with our record to see if we are a playoff team.
Yeah, and they're going to have to pick it up. Like you said, the upcoming schedule with the Vikings, Steelers, Eagles coming up as the next three, there are no walks in the park right now. You know what I mean? All the pressure's on. You're 6-3. You've put yourself in a good situation. You've put yourself in a position to move on into the postseason if you can play the right way. So we will see the next, what is it, maybe 5 weeks on how they're able to put things together on offense, what they're able to do in the running game, how the defense is, what is the defense going to be able to do to solidify the back end of that of their coverage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Olamide Zacchaeus had a pretty bad game. He didn't seem to catch the targets that were thrown at him. I believe he had one catch for the game, but he made a key block at the end of the game. I mean, it just felt weird that they kind of managed to resolve some of those issues while the game was ongoing. You know, they got really they somehow pulled that thing off when you felt for a couple of times there that they were. I mean, Caleb ends up with 8 carries. What were 7 of those him running for his life? And obviously that carry at the end looked like a design play, and they got him outside, and he scored the touchdown, and they win the game. But it's crazy, 63 yards on 8 carries for Caleb Williams. That's quite a production. 80 yards, 13 carries for Swift, and Monangai had 7 carries for 28 yards, including a touchdown. So, I mean, like I said, these are not the kind of statistics. I don't think they're going to have an offensive player of the week this week. But, man, it's pretty amazing that and I do think it reflects very poorly on the Giants that they managed to lose that game.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize how almost out of touch I am. Just so many attempts at 4th down conversions, and not only by the Bears, but by New York. You know, for the Bears to go 1-4, for the New York to go 1-3, and turn the ball over so many times to take not take points off the board, but to limit yourself from putting those 3 points on the board. It's just a different game than, back in the 90s when you could get the opportunity to get those 3 points and you're taking them no matter what. Now it's, 3rd down and 5, and you're just trying to get 2 or 3 yards so you can get yourself in better position to go for it on 4th down. I understand the science behind it, but at times it's hard to watch because I want those 3 points. I want those points on the board.
Yeah, especially with the weather, right? The way the weather was today, you were going to go for it because kicking it was going to be a hard day to kick with the wind and the snow and just the way the weather was. But these Chicago Bears guys, I mean, you can only play who's on your schedule. And like you're saying, it's not pretty, but they're finding ways to win.
The 4th down efficiency, they said, I think when they had 4 attempts, they said that was an NFL record. Both teams went 1 of 4 on 4th down conversions. So they had 8 4th down attempts in that game, and they converted 2 of them. That's insanity. I mean, I get it, Olin. It was bad weather, man. It was like 34 degrees. They said it felt like 13. And it was raining, and it was snowing initially. And, I'm sure it's like kicking a rock. The punter didn't have a good game. I mean, they were far from ideal circumstances. But, man, 2 of 8 between the two teams. 8 4th down conversion attempts, 6 that failed. That is insanity. That just seems like and you're right. Whenever they got to midfield, if they had the ball, well, let's just try the 4th down. I mean, wow, just crazy.
And one you could have argued that Greg Olsen was arguing that he should have went for. He should have went for it on 4th down, and Greg ends up being right. The Bears score a touchdown, and you lose the game by kicking those 3 points there. So the statistics, and like Kat is saying, it's just a totally different game now. Going for it on 4th down, when not to go for it, when to go for it. And people are looking at this thing in a totally different way, Mully. And like you're saying, 2 for 8 is crazy, man. That many times they went for it. And then think about the one time the announcer, our former teammate Greg Olson, talks about they should have went for it. You could argue that lost him the game not going for it. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh. I mean, just madness. Technically, guys, the Bears were penalized 3 times for 25 yards. There were 10 penalties on the Giants for 69 yards. But I think there were 2 penalties called on one play that were denied, that they didn't take them. And I think there was another penalty. I don't know how many. I'll have to go through the play-by-play and figure out how many times they committed a penalty that wasn't marked off because something good had happened for New York anyway. But 3 penalties that's almost cleaning it up, right? I mean, that's better than they've done probably all year.
Well, I think you also have to look at, when these penalties occurred. The one that made me so nervous was, they had the ball backed up, they get a false start penalty, and now they're backed up even a little more. They were able to get themselves out of that situation, out of that jam. But, those are the things when you take into consideration the weather and the way the game has gone leading up into that. I, wasn't sure whether that was going to be something they were going to be able to get away from. But, they got out of that situation. They were able to move the ball down the field. But, you have to watch those situations because one of those could come back to bite you.
And I thought that all in all, I thought Caleb actually played a pretty good game. It's just there were a ton of drops. They kept, I mean, it was crazy how many drops there were in that game. I don't know what to make of that, but, man, there were quite a few drops in that game.
Yeah, the weather, right? Go ahead,
Yeah.
Kat. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, the weather and, like you talked about Zacchaeus and his game. And, the question is, okay, when's the last time he played in something like Soldier Field? We all know the wind is a little different down there, the ball, when it's cold. And but you got to catch those balls. You got to bring them in. And let's be clear about, again, what we were watching today. It wasn't that the Bears were getting a bunch of penalties. It wasn't that they were sloppy. It wasn't that they weren't, the drops were sloppy, but it wasn't that, the Giants were taking the ball away. It was just that they were kicking our butt, right? They were playing better football. They were outplaying the Chicago Bears with all the injuries they have and all the things that they're going through there. They were just simply outplaying the Chicago Bears for 3+ quarters, right? It wasn't like you're saying, Mully, Kat. It wasn't like they had a ton of penalties. It wasn't like they had a ton of turnovers, right? They did have drops that were plaguing them a little bit, but it wasn't all that other stuff. It was just the fact that the Giants were out executing them.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll be anxious to look at the game again to see, where'd that outside zone go that had been working so well for the Bears that the Giants hadn't been able to defend the last couple of weeks. You saw them come down on the edges and just stop guys right there on the line of scrimmage. And just their aggressiveness was able to take a little bit of that away from the Giants. You thought that they were going to try and run the ball more. I understand that, in the beginning of the game, they were stopping that run. I thought the Bears did a good job in the middle of getting penetration. The linebackers were hitting the gaps that I thought they were supposed to. And they were, limiting them to 1 yard or a negative yard on all the run plays that they were getting early in the game.